ada forum. Yuk, kerja hari ni. Office. Jadi dah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin our program. Just a gentle reminder, to avoid interruptions, please keep your microphone muted throughout the session. And if you have any question for today's guest, kindly drop your questions at the chat box or during our question and answer session towards the end of the program. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Greetings to Associate Professor Dr. Badri Najib Zubir, Dean of IUM Academy, Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Anuwar, our honorable guest speaker, ladies and gentlemen, our respected audience, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Baseerah Talk Series, a program organized by IUM Academy of Graduate and Professional Studies. My name is Naima from IUM Academy Events. It's a pleasure to meet all of you again for the 5th installment of Baseerah Talk Series. As for newcomers, welcome to our program. We conducted this talk monthly since last March, where we invite prominent speakers among the professionals and experts who will deliver topics related to their fields. Today, we have participants in the Zoom meeting, as well as those streaming live on our YouTube channel. We are happy to welcome everyone, all our joiners to our talk series today. Alhamdulillah, it is already the 5th session. The first session was with Mr. Wan Abdul Rahim from PNB Berhad. Second one, we had it with Datuk Ni Muhammad Hasyuddin from Bank Islam. As for the third session, we had Dr. Zaharuddin Abdul Rahman, founder of Elza Group. And last session, we had it with Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Rizal Wahidin, Chair of Information Technology and Computer Science Discipline, Academy of Sciences Malaysia. All 4 sessions are already up on our YouTube channel, so do check them out if you'd like to watch them later, okay? For our talk today, we are very delighted to present you Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Anuwar Ali, Chancellor, University of Cyberjaya, who will speak on preparing our university graduates for the post-COVID employment scenario. Thank you for being with us today, Tan Sri.
Thank you.
And to introduce our speaker, I have the pleasure to invite IUM Academy Dean, Associate Professor Dr. Badri Najib Zubir. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Sister Emma. And thank you, Tan Sri Anuwar, for being able to deliver this talk for today. And to all participants, I say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and very good morning to all of you. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce to all the viewers today, Tan Sri Professor Emeritus Anuwar Ali. Tan Sri Anuwar Ali graduated with his first degree in the year I was born, 1970. So I was born in 1970, and that is the year that Tan Sri got his first degree. And you can imagine, I have been with the university for almost 30 years in IUM, and with the long service that Tan Sri has served the nation from the day I was born. So you can just imagine the wealth of experience that Tan Sri has. So we are very, very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Tan Sri is able to deliver in this series, to deliver his talk in this series. So a bit more about Tan Sri. He is currently the Chancellor of the University of Cyberjaya, but he was also a Vice Chancellor previously for 2 universities. One is the Vice Chancellor of OUM and also the President. And he served there for 12 years, seeing the growth of OUM to what it is now. And OUM right now has more than 30,000 students all over Malaysia. And prior to that, he was the Vice Chancellor of the University Kebangsaan Malaysia for 5 years, from 1998 to 2003. And he started off as, and he continues to be an academic, an eminent academic from Malaysia, who have served not only the nation, but also globally. He started off his academic journey as a tutor in UKM in 1973, and he has also established himself as a well-respected economist, giving advice to the government on many areas, and until today, he continues to serve the nation by being consultant in many critical and key government projects, such as the action plan for small and medium scale industries. And he's also involved in the strategic plan for lifelong learning in Malaysia, in Malaysia, and he's also a consultant to the Industry Master Plan Malaysia previously. And on the global scene, he has gained recognition by being at one time the chairman of the Southeast Asian Open Learning Center, which is based in Jakarta, and also a member of the Griffith University Asia Pacific Council, Australia, a board member of the Association of Southeast Asian Institute of Higher Education Learning. He was also previously a chairman of the Malaysian Examination Council, the Director General of the Jabatan Pengajian Tinggi at the Ministry, board member of SIRIM Training Series. So this is a wealth of experience with the speaker that we have with us today. So again, I would like to say that we are very, very glad to have Tan Sri with us. And without further ado, I pass it to Tan Sri to deliver the talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Badri and Naimah as well. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. I'm most privileged to be here this morning to present my views on the graduate unemployment scenario at the moment. And of course, we'll try to introduce a few plan or a few initiatives that could be done at various levels. Nevertheless, let me firstly thank Dr. Badri for the kind words. And when he said that I graduated in 1970, it makes me feel much older this morning. Nevertheless, I'm actually very privileged as well to be associated with IIUM Academy for the past 4 or 5 years. That is indeed an instrument where IIUM is trying to enhance lifelong learning at various levels, as well as the normal higher education and lower education and school education as well. Now, let me just say that the topic that I'm going to do at this Baseerah talk, preparing university graduates for the post-COVID-19 employment scenario, is indeed, can I get the slide, please? On please. That's the last one. Okay. Now, this is indeed a current topic of interest, not only to all the universities in Malaysia, but also to the government in view of the past 2 years downturn in our economic activities. Next, please. Now, this morning, I will cover a few areas which are important and relevant to the topic that I'm covering this morning. The impact of COVID-19 in terms of education, particularly higher education, the unemployment statistics to show, to indicate how things have improved or otherwise in our environment. The pertinent issues to me that are important in terms of looking at the way forward for the graduates of all our universities. And the fourth item, I'll be looking at some of the areas where we prepare the graduates at the various level, particularly at the university level, and of course indirectly at the school level as well. Fifthly, I will cover the challenges that are graduates from the graduates' perspective, because we normally this is important because normally we tend to look from the industry side, meaning the industry people, the corporate sector will always say that our graduates are unprepared or ill-prepared and so on. But to me, I think we have to look from the university's perspective as well as the graduates' perspective as well. Next, Mona. Now, because of COVID, which started in March 2020, for the past 2.5 years, there's a kind of what I call labor market disruption, meaning the trajectory is not as smooth as during the past many years, where we always expect there's employment created for the youth population, there's employment for the graduates, the number of unemployed graduates will be under control and so on. But because of COVID-19 in early 2020, it's disrupted a lot of economic activities within the country. The stoppage of industries, some industries are totally closed, not only in terms of the normal manufacturing industries, but also even the plantation sector as well, the agriculture sector. So because of this, the impact is rather, we can see it openly in terms of the impact of the various stoppages, the MCOs and so on, as a result of the government's wanted to control the spread of COVID-19. Now, the disruption is also more felt for first-time job seekers. So this is important because those who are the youth of today, including people who have passed even SPM after their school, there are those who can't continue their education seeking for jobs. There's also, of course, graduates as well, which I will cover in terms of numbers and so on later on. And the job opportunities are actually becoming smaller as a result of COVID-19. And it is because of this that the first-time job seekers, not only those who pass out from the school system, but also from the university system, find that it's very, very challenging for them because not only of the job opportunities, and because as well, there are people who are in the job market who lost their job as well. They are, some industries are closed, so they find that they lose their job as well. So the income of some sectors of population are in that infected. But more importantly, for the first-time job seekers, in terms of graduates particularly, it's very challenging because of the fact that they are moving into an area where the starting salaries are very low. So this is also another factor which I will dwell a bit later on, where we find that even graduates are paid at the minimum wages level, which is 1,005 at the moment. And I'll show you later, I'll share with you later, that there are even those graduates who actually get less than the minimum wage. So this is a very important factor as well, because the minimum wage, that is 1,005 as of May this year, is a government requirement for industries to employ anybody as a starting pay. But because of this non-compliance, that's impacted not only people who join the labor market, but also graduates who joined this year and the previous year. So I think these are important things which we have to consider. Next, please. Now I'll share with you some of the important, points with regard to our unemployment, the number of people who are unemployed. You look at the graph on the top left corner, you find that you go through the years, as long we go backwards to 1982, we find that the most impacted time was actually 1988, where the number of unemployed actually was 400, almost 480,000, and it's about 7.2% of the labor force. And this is indeed very high because 1988 was a bad year because there was a big global recession at that time. Now, moving on to the last few years, we look at the figures for 2020 and 2021. We find that because of the COVID, actually, the number of unemployed of the labor force is 711,000 in 2020, and last year it was 733,000, which is 4.5 and 4.6 of the labor force, respectively. And then moving on to the latest figures, the last quarter of this year and the second quarter of this year, we still find that unemployment is still very high. Now, for last year, for this year, is first quarter, the first 3 months of the year, we find that the unemployment numbers was 671,000, which is 4.1% of the total labor force. And the second quarter is 600, reduced a bit because the economy was opening up, the industries were employing people, and there's also the plantation sector were employing people, but not reaching the peak that was prior to COVID. So we can see that the numbers are still high. Now, if we look at the figures at the bottom, because of the cumulative numbers of graduates that have been passing through our system. Now, every year, actually, from I think 2018, the number of graduates that pass into the annual number is about more than 300,000. Every year, when there's a convocation, there's 300,000 graduates passing through the system, and they all, of course, want employment. This is where the issues will arise. Now, for the graduates, if we look at the figures for 2020, is 202,000 graduates, which is about 4.4% of the total graduate population. And in last year, it dropped a bit to 197,000, but nevertheless, it's still above 4% of the total number of graduates. Next, please. Now, I continue with some of the figures in terms of graduate unemployment. Now, as I said earlier, the numbers, the rate of graduate unemployment is exacerbated because of the numbers that graduate from the system. You can look at the figures there. For 2020 is over 300,005 graduates, and and last year it was 318. So you can imagine the rush, or rather the expectation of each graduate passing through our system. Now, if we look closely, because of the disruption which I mentioned earlier, the first thing we can look is the distribution of, this was 2021, the latest figure that Department of Statistics produced for us, the distribution is for the skill occupation. That means there's a match between the graduates' qualification almost and the type of work that they do, 62.8%. But the rest, there's a mismatch. Qualification and the type of work or the category of work that the graduates are placed into, 32.3%, which is a semi-skill and low skill. For even the graduates find themselves 4.9% of the in 2021, almost 5% are in low skill job. This is where I mentioned earlier that their salary, their starting salary is relatively low. Now, in terms of the distribution of the top 3 economic sectors where the graduates are, is the services sector. 16.3% are in the services sector, which include banking, retailing, marketing, and so on. So they're placed there. And manufacturing is 13.2%. This is good. I presume a big proportion of those who go into manufacturing are people in engineering or science and so on. And of course, education is a big chunk of, so you have the possibility of new graduates being absorbed in the education sector as teachers, as lecturers or researchers and so on. So as a result of this, over the last maybe decade or so, the number, you can see the figure. Of course, this is also because of the increasing number of private universities and colleges. The number of those that go into education has increased tremendously, which is in a way a good sign because we absorb them to suit their qualification. Now, this is where I mentioned about the low income level, which starting graduates have. Now, you find that a big chunk last year, almost 40%, get 1,000 ringgit per month. So this is bad actually, because they are not put first at the same level as the minimum wage, which is again not a good way of looking at the graduates' problem, at the graduate expectation, because they would certainly see at least getting the minimum wage of 1,005. But the real picture outside there, the reality is that the expectations are never met. And you look at the figures again, between 1,000 ringgit to 2,000 is 34% of the graduate population last year. And those who get over 2,000 is 14.8%. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we look at the minimum wage, actually, minimum wage is still relatively low for Malaysia because it's cheap labor policy. While we strive to become high income economy like Singapore, where the wages are very high, we still find that we're always under pressure from the employers, from the manufacturing sector to reduce the minimum wage. But indirectly, it affects the payment, or rather the salaries of our fresh graduate, because the minimum wage, if the minimum wage is 2,000, which may be suitable or appropriate at this moment, so the graduate will certainly get at least 2,000. But again, minimum wage is not a good measure to pay the graduate because they are qualified in a way, but the situation is such that they have no choice and their expectations are never met. Next, please. Now, some of the issues which are normally found in the discussion about graduate employment is related to a few items that is relevant with respect to our country, our nation. Now, first one is the low generation of highly skilled jobs. So I think in terms of the graduates coming into the system, the manufacturing sector, the industries, and so on are lagging actually, lagging behind in terms of the upgrading of their technology, in terms of research and development. So because of this, we find that the highly skilled jobs that should be there for the graduate, for the fresh graduate, is not there. And one of the things we find in our structure of industries is that the majority of industries, manufacturing industries, are actually medium and small scale and micro size industries. So it is because of the structure, we find that there's a lack of investment in terms of technology development, in terms of innovation, as we can see from that. And besides being dependent on foreign investment, because there's no generation of our own technology, there's lack of R&D, as we all know from the university's perspective, industries and university linkages in terms of innovation and R&D still very nascent. So this is not a good indicator for us to develop the necessary job, the necessary skills, highly skilled job for our graduates. So I think it is because of this that we can see the problem arriving. And the third item is actually industry size, as I mentioned just now, not site. There's a dominance of medium, and small scale industries. If we look around, we haven't gone up the scale, in terms of technology development, in terms of innovation, as we all know from the university's side as well. Now, if we want to move further up, we look at other countries, the models of other countries, the success stories of other countries. We look at Korea, we look at Singapore, we look at even Vietnam now, and Taiwan. They move up the technology ladder. So this is where I think one of the things that we have to look through. Next, please. Now, from our perspective as educationists, as people from the university, I think we have to really look into this because of some of the observation that we made is that the undergraduate is given education, but not to maximize their potential. So I think this is a part that university faculties, university dean and the top management have to really look into this, because I sincerely feel that the graduate has a lot of potential. The only way is how do we enhance that potential, particularly in terms of our knowledge dissemination, our curriculum, and so on. So I think one of the things that we see as an important element is whether in each university, the initiative that is taken by the management, by the faculty is student-centered. So I think this to me is an important aspect of moving forward for the student to enhance their expectation once they graduate. So student-centered initiative is an important aspect of that component. Now, apart from being student-centered initiative, which actually reflect the infrastructure in the universities, the non-academic infrastructure, the campus accommodation, and so on. Of course, at the faculty level, we all, I think, agree that the teaching and learning processes are very important. So how do we do this? We have to look at the quality of our academics, the quality of faculty members, and of course, apart from that, we have always been blamed that the curriculum is not good enough. But I think to be fair to the academic, to be fair to faculty members, I have no problem with curriculum development, because I find that, or I think most of us find that every faculty will do it in a kind of 3 or 4 year cycle. They look at the curriculum, but it's always, when you talk to people in the industry, when you talk people outside, they will blame the curriculum because the students are not ready. But actually, I don't think curriculum is a big issue. It's how the knowledge is imparted to the student. That's important. What are the what do you call the culture of seeking knowledge by the student have to be really looked into. Now, apart from that, I think of late we find that it is a big challenge that arises from COVID-19, because face-to-face classes have been reduced almost to zero. Some of the universities in the past 2 years, some are not really, done in a proper way. But nevertheless, I believe that, because I come from Open University Malaysia, or I believe that to move forward, and I saw the minister as well, was the Minister of Education announced that there is a kind of blended education in the school system. So I believe that at the university level, how do you upgrade this? The platform that you use to enhance the learning processes. I think the student must be able to move, continuously into a system where they'll be used to blended kind of learning. I think if we discuss among faculty members, there are certain courses which I believe we can do online. There are certain courses that can be done by a good lecturer online. But of course, certain subjects may require face-to-face. So you have to blend between the two. Perhaps the faculty of medicine, 90% has to be face-to-face. Engineering, maybe 70%, I'm not sure. But the faculty members must be able to mix the blended nature of things to come. The learning process, the teaching processes will be changed. And I think we have to take that into account. If faculty members are not aware of this or not driven to do this, I think they will just, they just get quiet and nothing will happen. So I think at every university, at every faculty, the top management of every faculty, I'm sure, are aware of this. And how do we go about? First, of course, we talk about the budget. We talk about the move by even lecturers from the normal face-to-face lecturing to a new environment where they have to do online. Next, please. Now, I think, as I said earlier, we apart from emphasizing on the learning and teaching processes at every faculty, I believe that from the graduate perspective, their expectation of the faculty members, their expectation of the university curriculum and so on will be at a higher level. I think they are aware of what's happening and I think they're looking forward to greater kind of linkage between what they learn from the school and the campus environment. So in this, I think we are aware of all this. First, we are told that the student must acquire appropriate skill and competency. So we can line up and we look at the strategic plan of every university now. They will emphasize on thinking skill, management skill. Of late in Malaysia, we have entrepreneurial skill. Every university has been calling themselves as entrepreneurial university and so on. So these are all fine, you know. And I think the faculties are moving forward to ensure that every graduate will have all these skills, including computing skill and so on. Now, on the second item, there are other things which is beyond the academic realm, shall I say. These are useful skills that include interpersonal leadership skill, communication skill, language, bahasa Inggeris dan sebagainya. So these are important as well. But I'm not sure it's possible that first, different universities will look at this in different way. Some will emphasize more on this co-curriculum activities of the student. Some may be, you know, like the private university, they don't have the facilities. And private universities, I believe they don't want to spend too much on all this. So they assume that the school system has taken care of all this, which is fair actually. So I think all this, number two, additional skill should start from the school level. The school has to take care of all this. Otherwise, when they come to the campus, they find it difficult to adjust. And I can see that, I'm sure you agree with me, some of the students find it difficult to adjust because the campus is supposed to be, they are more independent, they're not led every minute by the teacher. So I think adjusting from a school environment to university environment, some students may not reach the mark that we expect of them. So I think, I believe that the school system has a role to play. But I don't know, maybe your experience, faculty members' experience, I can see that we don't talk to the school, you know. Mostly we don't talk to the school. We just assume that, you know, the students come on board, come to the campus, they are 100% equipped. No, because I remember but this was about 30 years ago or more, when I was at the Jabatan Pendidikan Tinggi, as was mentioned earlier. I find that the school people who are in charge of the school system, they don't want to talk to the faculty members. They don't want to talk to the deans of education, for instance. And likewise, people at the university, they try to avoid discussing with people at the school level, those who manage the curriculum at the school and so on. So this is, I think, not a good way of doing things. We have to improve upon this, you know. There should be a strong linkage between what is happening at the school level and the university level, because the transition should be made smooth for every student that comes into the university campus. Now, the third one, having realistic expectation. This is where I think it's from the graduate. It's a big challenge to them, because graduates, when they come out of the system, like the many years since we started university education, is to have a good job, to wear a tie, go to an aircon room, you know, you become the boss, you wear a jacket and so on. So that expectation has changed so much, you know. particularly, as I said earlier, when the economic sectors cannot provide jobs that match the student's qualification. And worse still, they cannot match the student expectation. So that's a big problem. This is why people say, oh, you know, the student, the graduate can join the gig economy, can, you know, be delivery boys, Grab, and so on. But I think this is a short-term phenomenon. Long-term, you can't expect graduates to ride the motorbike for the next 10 or 20 years. Is not in their mind, you know. So I think the political leaders, the policymakers have to really sit down and see how this thing can be improved. So the fourth one is there's also an increasing opportunities in terms of the student, or rather the graduates, adapting themselves to a new work environment. They should be multidimensional and creative. It's easier said than done, you know, because are we prepared as a country? Are we prepared in terms of the various sectors of the economy? Are we prepared to indulge in this kind of freedom, in a sense, to give to new graduates, so that they have the ability to be creative on their own? Of course, there are cases where, you know, but the numbers are not there. It's totally, of course, different from more developed countries, because they have the environment, they have the support of the scientific support, the innovative support to do it. But in terms of developing country like us, the support system is not there. So I think that, in a way, is a drawback, not only to the student, to the graduate, but also a drawback to policymakers. How do you tackle this? Because this, to me, is an important dimension in the years to come. Now, the last one is, of course, I think people talk about IR 4.0. There's a lot of talk, IR 4.0, but people say we are moving to IR 5.0. How do we do this? Of course, when, every minister will talk about now 4.0, but I'm not sure whether they understand what it means. They may know, you know, you need this, you need that, but in terms of implementing all these, you know, expectation at the marketplace, at the workplace, are we really ready? Next one, ladies and gentlemen, is my concluding remark. Next one, please. Okay. Now, I think one of the things which I do emphasize, and this is important through observation. Some of you may agree, some of you may not agree. But I think looking at the universities, whether they are in the private or in the public domain, I think we should be able to achieve a certain readiness for the student, for the graduate, because we have to be sure that they are ready. But they are ready. The next linkage or link is with the policymakers. What do they do with graduates? While we say that we need more SNT students, SNT graduates, what will happen when they move out of the university campus? Their expectation, you have to meet their expectation. Now, in developed countries, the scenario is different, because graduates have more opportunities, not only in a normal working manufacturing sector and so on. But the R&D aspect is very important. I think some of you who are involved in research and development may know this, because in the developed countries, you know, researchers are always demanded, whether they are in the public domain, in the public universities or private, but also more importantly, industries. The S&T people, you know, they become innovators and so on. This is where I think we are still on a low level, so to speak. And the last and more importantly, I think we have to ensure that academically, the students are of course very good. This depends on the school system as well. But do you notice, you know, I always, sometimes I ask my wife, you know, why is it that every year SPM result has to be, you know, has to be better than the previous year? Have you ever wondered? I don't see the point. If it's not good, say it's not good compared to previous year. So I think they have to change their mindset, you know, because the last 2 years has been very bad, I think, for SPM, for STPM. But the results seem to be very good compared to the previous year. So I'm not sure whether we are doing the right thing, you know, but we have to tell the truth. If it's no good, it's no good. So we have to improve on it. So I think those are areas that I would like to share with you. And I'm sure people who are present with us this morning have some views, opinion on what I've said. But nevertheless, I thank the Academy, IIUM, and of course those who are present this morning. Thank you so much, and we'll try to have a dialogue after this. Thank you, Dr. Badri.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Tan Sri, for all your sharing of knowledge, experience, and views on the reality that's happening with regards to unemployment scenario of our graduates post-COVID and the matters that we should take into consideration. We hope this talk has benefited everyone who are with us today. To all joiners, we welcome your feedback for the improvement of our Baseerah Talk Series. Kindly refer to our chat box where we share a link to our evaluation form. We would really appreciate every single feedback from all of you. Now I would like to open the floor for Q&A session. For Zoom participants, please get ready. If you have any question, you may unmute your mic and ask our speaker directly. For joiners via YouTube, you may drop your questions at the chat box and we will read it during the session. So if anybody has any question, yeah, please. You may introduce yourself and unmute the mic. If there is none,
no question. I think my experience, Emma,
yeah,
through the years, if there's no question, either the speaker wasn't good, people don't understand, or it's too good, people don't want to ask questions. So I hope I have questions, you know, so that we can discuss. Thank you so much.
but we do actually receive some.
Very good, very good.
If I may read it, okay.
Okay, please.
Right. The first
we tackle one by one, eh?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay.
Sri, how do we make online education and work more adaptive to the industry?
Online education. Okay. I think I've been dwelling on this with some friends. First, we have to prepare the system, the platform. Of course, it needs budget at every university. That's very important. But obviously, there are already many number of good platforms that are available at reasonably priced. So that's very important. How do you cater? How much you want to cover for the student's sake? Secondly, is the preparedness of faculty members, because we have to prepare them because this is a new environment for many, especially people like my age or younger slightly. They don't want to understand what is online learning. So that is very critical for the faculty, meaning the faculty must be able to organize things in such a way, depending on each faculty. Some are, I mentioned about blended just now, some are more online, plus face-to-face classes, some less online, depending on the needs and challenges that every faculty should go through. But of course, the information that I read of late is the preparedness of each faculty member. Are we prepared? Are the faculty members prepared to do this? So I think in this respect, the management of the university, meaning in the case of UIA, the rector, the deputy rector in charge of academics, other universities, the vice chancellors, must also play a role, taking the lead, not only in terms of the budget needed, but also the move towards more or a mix of online and face-to-face. So I think preparedness means, lastly just now, is the ability of the top management of the university, as well as the faculty top management, the dean, deputy dean. How do you relate to the faculty members? I think there's always, when there's something new, people are a bit resistant, but with the encouragement, inshallah, we'll get a better environment for. I've seen some universities, even in Malaysia, where there some private universities as well. They move faster than others. So I think it depends on the determination of the top management and the deans at each faculty. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tan Sri. We have another one from our viewer. Could it be that outcome-based education imposed by the Ministry of Higher Education on universities is a factor in confining the potential of universities? Because too much documentation can rein in creativity.
The last one. The last sentence you.
Because he says that too much documentation can rein in creativity.
Well, I think if we talk about the school system, maybe that's one of the weakness that the ministry has looked into. But at the university, I think there's enough variation in the sense that faculty members or even the leadership at each faculty, at the top management, may be able to guide, to create. I think universities are meant to inculcate innovation, to inculcate creativity, not only among faculty members, but more importantly, in terms of those undergraduates or even postgraduate students. So I don't see any restriction in that sense, you know, because academic matters are actually within the sphere of the university control. As long as you follow the syllabus or the curriculum, and then because the senate of each university is particularly given the task of ensuring this creativity. So I don't see any restriction in that sense. Meaning creativity is there. It's up to the faculty members. It's up to the management of the university. So I think of course, some universities are more creative than others. So that's the point. So like we have here, but again, I'm not sure how you say this. Some universities are research universities, some are not. But when you think back, every university should be a research university. But in Malaysia, you define 5 research universities, the rest are not research. So I think we have to look into this as well. Thank you. Okay, Naima, thank you.
All right, thank you, Tan Sri. One last question, if there is no other from our Zoom participants.
I think I saw a hand raised, Abdul Hamid.
Yeah.
Dr. Abdul Hamid?
Can you hear me? Assalamu alaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, Tansri. Jazakallah khairan. In the point that you have just mentioned, you have shared with us an important idea that you said, preparing the graduate. We have the kulliyas or the departments or the faculties. You said they have to focus on achieving the potential of every student.
Yeah.
But we see in some universities, some faculties, the focus is on certain specializations. So in this case, the students who are not in these highly demanded faculties might not be interested to achieve, because for them, whatever I achieve, no matter how good my results are, in the future, I'm not going to be hired, because the market does not demand my specialization. So they will be demoralized. So what is your opinion on this?
I think there are various factors, Doctor, here, because to me, the potential of every student must be given priority, in the sense that the expectation of every student is to get a good job when they graduate. So at the moment, there are various disciplines that may not be able to cater for the expectation and the needs of students. There are certain disciplines which do not match, or rather that will not be demanded once they graduate. And this is a point that has to be actually looked into by every university, because you don't expect the policymakers at the ministry to look into this, but each university, particularly the Senate, you have to discuss these issues, where some discipline or some subject matters are not demanded, as you imply, once they graduate. But nevertheless, I also think that some public universities, some, I'm not saying all, some public universities still working under the old environment, in the sense that they have already standardized their faculty structure, meaning you must offer this course, you must offer course B, course A, and so on. Because in public universities, it's difficult to say that this lecturer is no more wanted. It's not possible, because you work until you are retired. So let's say you teach the the Indian civilization, as an example. There are still some universities in Malaysia doing that. But the problem is the student in public university, because they apply to suit their interest as well, And public universities have no way to say, as long as they're qualified, they can come in as long as they're places in the faculty or department. So that change is a bit difficult, in the sense that some of the disciplines, some of the subject matters are not given the priority in terms of their at the workplace once they leave the university, once they become graduates. So I think that part, the university has to look really. But of course, I'm not saying that history is no good. History is philosophy, is is important to any country, and there should be courses in that area. But you can't have, just because it's a public university, instead of training 50 good historians, you have to take in 300 students to do history, which may not be appropriate one day. That's a problem, doctor. I can see that. I think the structure of public universities is less capable of changing that within the, but in I think in private university, because they can easily change if they see that, you know, that particular discipline or that particular subject matter is not wanted in the industry, they just close down the department or whatever. So I think moving into a new environment, the faculty has to anticipate, but more importantly, to see whether, because public universities is meant to you know, the idea is to increase enrollment. And enrollment means more people. Now I think enrollment in Malaysia is about, for students, about 35%, 36%. There was a hue and cry last 2 weeks where 70% of SPM students are not doing higher education. This is a fact. It happens every year, because only 35 up to 36% will go into higher education. They go to Tibet, to, you know, university education. The rest are, you know, they find a job. So I think that argument wasn't right. You have to look at the total picture. In Europe, in the industrialized country, it's 60%, 70%. Even then, they are now looking whether this 60% can find a job once they graduate. So I think you have to be very clear. The argument was wrongly, I think, about the 70% of SPM students don't go for higher education. It's a fact. It happens every year. You know, you can absorb 40% at the moment. Okay, doctor.
Jazakallah khair, Prof. Another related issue, if the moderator allows me, give me another 2-3 minutes. We see in Malaysia, in some universities, the focus is only on the theoretical part. So once the students are out of the universities, you see them very ambiguous. They are not sure whether they are able to compete in the market or not, whether they are going to be employed or not, because they were not taught practically, or the focus was only on the theoretical part.
Yes.
So you see now students specializing in English language and literature, Arabic language and literature, but you rarely see them speaking Arabic well or English well. They study political science, but they only know the theories. They were not taken to the parliament, for instance, to political parties, to see how politics runs. You see them learning many things about theories, but the practical part is missing or not given that much focus. So what happens is that once they are employed, they found them, they have nothing except the theories. So how to solve this problem? Maybe you take them to the field, down to earth, take them to the field. Whether they are studying law, you take them to the court, to see it now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the point is well taken, Doctor. But I see that actually all universities have attachment program. You know, attachment program, meaning whether they do engineering, IT, or business, economy, or any other subject matter, they do attachment, which is 1 semester, I believe. I'm out of date in terms of the time frame, but I know the the universities have even a department or officers in charge of attaching the student. I'm sure UIA has one. So that's one good point. Yeah. The only limitation is every year, doctor, we have about, I mentioned it now, 300 over 1,000 students every year. So the question is whether the private sector, the industries, where you want these people to go, have the capacity to absorb these numbers. Or if they can't, they just comply with the ministry, with the university, they take in, but they don't train them in the way that it should be done. So this is where the question of theory versus what you call practice, where the practice is lacking. So my thinking is the industry, those outside, they cannot cope with numbers. And you mentioned about political science student. I don't think our parties are a good example. You know? They shouldn't join. They shouldn't watch our politician. Doctor, you agree with me?
Yeah, Prof. True. I don't mean to join politics, but just to observe.
I understand.
The value that they learn,
of course,
to see them whether they implemented or not.
Yeah.
Usually, I always ask my students, do not be politicians, be political scientists.
You teach political science, I assume.
Yeah, sometimes I ask them to be a political scientists, not to be politicians.
No, they should be watching Parliament, how Parliament deliberate itself.
Exactly.
That kind of thing, you know. But don't go into political parties. That's my thinking, you know. Okay, thank you so much, Doctor. Any other question, Naima?
Yes, there is. English is a sensitive subject in our country. With borderless job opportunities, English has become more important for employability. How best the sensitive English issue should be handled, in your opinion?
No, personally, I don't think you should make it sensitive. I mean, it's normal thing to do. If you want to be a good student, you want to be a good graduate, you just have to learn. Okay, so I think to me is not people have make it a big issue, because by learning English doesn't mean that you forget your mother tongue or your national language. So I mean, I had my in fact my schooling was English, and similarly I think my friend Professor Sanusi, who is in the forum today, we are all during my time is all English school. I did English or Bahasa Malaysia lah. But to me, I still feel my Malay is equally good, no problem. So I think if the question is good, but I think we have to ensure that it's practical. It's very practical, rather than saying, "Oh, you shouldn't do this." But if you make it irrational, then there's a lot of debate. There's a lot of debate. Of course, those who are, semangat bahasa Melayu, what all this rubbish. But to me, being practical, you look at the outside there, the banking sector, those sectors that deal with outside, even English. So, I mean, I recently attended an online forum with Indonesia. They speak English now, sometimes better than us, So to me, practical, that's okay. I mean, there's nothing sensitive about it. UIA is English. Betul tak? Dr. Badri?
Yes.
So, but
even for those in Islamic studies, it is also a requirement.
Of course. But I have a small issue in this respect, because it is already accepted as a policy. If you want to be an international player, you want to be a trading and innovative country, nation, English is equally important. But But to me, it should be from the school. If you fail this thing at the school, it can never happen. Because this is where I believe UIA may be not so bad, but like UKM, when you enter the UKM, if from your school your English is half baked, I don't think you can improve much. But maybe UIA is different. So talking about English, I think we must take the subject seriously at the school level. Probably I share with you something. MUET, MUET?
Yes.
Malaysian University Examination Test. If you want to know, I was the one who introduced. This is a bit of history.
This is Sadaqah Jariyah, inshallah, Tan Sri.
Because I was a director of higher education at that time. 1997 or so, or 96. I want to ensure, and at that time, Datuk Najib was the minister. I want to ensure actually the school takes the responsibility. And when MUET was introduced, 98 or something like that. No, 20 years. The test was done so that your rank, isn't it, 1 to 6. Certain faculties you must pass. You must pass before you even at the beginning. Even you enter the faculty, you must pass. Say law, for instance. Law, if I'm not wrong, level 4 or 5. 5 better. If you get 6, of course, you're taken in. That means your English is very good. But what happened along the way, the universities changed the system. They changed this way. You take MUES while you're in the university, not at the school. So that technically, apa orang kata, pusing the story, So this is the one thing.
I mean, it didn't serve the purpose,
right?
The original purpose,
right? Because some people, one thing, I think they want to say that it's not the job of the school. No, it's wrong. MUET was done to ensure that if you don't have a certain level, I'm not sure UIA what's the level, Dr. Badri. Depend on the faculty, the kuliah. Huh?
Yeah.
Depend on the kuliah. But now you join as first year. Before you graduate, you can take it, and you don't require any level. You pay the fees, you sit. That's it. Betul.
Betul. That's right.
Betul.
It's I mean, for most universities, it's just registering, and that's it.
They pay the fees. They get registered. Once you register, you pass. No, the idea was different at the beginning, so they change along the way. So I think you should be practical lah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prof Sanusi tak ada question.
We can ask him.
We
invite him to ask.
He's very experienced, I think he graduated in 1972. Orang lama. Prof Sanusi, where are you? Okay, if there's any other question, Naima?
There is one more from our YouTube.
Okay.
Question, yeah. This is from Encik Kamaruzaman.
Yeah.
In today's world, with the disruptive technology, we face a mismatching employment as compared to the graduate's degree. How agile and fast our university curriculum to adapt to the situation?
Okay, I think in theory, every university, every faculty for that matter, will have to to relook at their curriculum every what you call every cycle, which is 3 or 4 years. So I believe that this is an important instrument to ensure that first, your curriculum is in line with Cik Kamarul Zaman, is in line with what is needed in industry. So a factor of 3 to 4 years, one turn of teaching, I think is a good enough. You can't, adjust the curriculum every year, and it's impossible. So secondly, the link with industry is very important. The faculty link. For instance, normally to review any curriculum, the department will set a committee. This is a practice, I think, even in UIA or any other university. And the committee will, among their function, the function is to discuss and to get the views of industry. So I think that link is also important. The question is whether the collaboration, the feedback from industry happen. So that's very important. And the faculty should be able to determine or identify who are the people they should talk to, So I think that's an important aspect. But what I've observed is sometimes it takes a bit longer for the university to have a turnaround, in the sense that, what are the subjects that need to be dropped, what new subject to be put in. The turnaround may take longer than 3 or 4 years, more than one cycle, So I think that's one drawback. But obviously, each faculty, and like UIA, so many kuliah, kan? It depends on the dean, depends how the department can go. But what is also interesting, which is I'm a bit disappointed, because you meet any CEO, your student are useless. Ramai lah cakap macam tu. You because I always ask them, if they talk that way, have you been to the university since you left the campus, since you got your degree? Have you gone to university? Dia kata tak pernah. And then how come you because Dr. Badri, if a faculty were to call CEO or even chief financial officer ke, chief marketing ke, they won't come. They send their junior, and maybe your own graduate. They send to discuss your syllabus. You cannot. I always ask, especially CEOs of big companies, top government servant, they always tell me, your student no good lah. I kata, since I always ask a question like this, since you graduate many years ago, have you been to the campus or not? That part they will keep quiet lah. Because that's the idea. Industry people will always condemn, which is not right. When you ask them to help, for instance, can you ask CEO of Nestle, come join our curriculum committee? Boleh ke? Tak ada. They'll send one junior officer, which can happen to be last year your graduate. So this part is, unlike developed countries, they are honest about it. Maknanya, the top university people can talk and meet the top industry people.
Yeah.
Dia orang cakap je. I'm not happy, because when it comes to help, they won't help. So next time you meet CEO, you ask them the same question. Because I know some universities, because when I was at the faculty economics, UKM last time, when I was the dean, we wanted some CEOs to come and discuss, things like curriculum, how they see our students. They send their HR junior fellow. They don't come. To them, small matter lah. Not big enough to meet the dean.
Mhm.
Right, Dr. Badri?
Yeah.
Okay, I hope I answered Cik Kamaruzaman lah. But nevertheless, both sides must work together. Secondly, the faculty, the department must ensure that there's enough kind of gap to look into the curriculum. Because if the gap is longer, then you're losing the momentum. Thank you. Okay, Nek Mah, ada lagi?
Okay, that is all for now, inshallah.
Habis dah.
Yeah, if there is any other question from the audience, from some participants.
What about the chat? I see the file on the chat. Maybe Dr. Badri, last question from you.
Right. The issue that Tan Sri mentioned there, the participation of the industry people, that's quite actually it is quite true, because it is sometimes the industry people will give excuses in terms of time, but the way forward, I guess, if is to have some kind of mediation or some kind of intervention in terms of the involvement. So right now, the ministry has introduced this CEO at faculty, but again, they can come and give talks for maybe 3 or 4 times in a year, but the involvement in the curriculum discussion is still very difficult to get. The people that really can give input on what is really needed in the industry. But moving forward, the idea of there is also if I can say, there is also fear from higher education providers about certain things like to UTI, for example. There is a bit of, maybe a lot of adjustment on the academia also in terms of the involvement with the industry, because the worry is that sometimes is when it is the industry part can be a bit loose. So what is your take on this, Tan Sri?
Yes, I think this is where I think we look at the difference between the more developed nation, where as I earlier mentioned, even the top CEOs, the top industry captain will actually galvanize galvanize their experience, their knowledge on industry, and they share with the university people. But here, unfortunately, may happen in some, but definitely is not that is not a culture that is worth pursuing. To me, one simple example, let's say the Prime Minister were to open a seminar on graduate unemployment. All the CEOs will be sitting in front, Betul tak?
Yes.
And top ministers. But once the PM could say, have you been seeing the dean of the faculty, the dean of the kuliah? They cannot answer.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, in the leveraging the top people who know about industry is one factor that is lacking. Yeah. And I think you can ask any dean, if they invite top people to join their review committee, I think that's the last time that the first thing they reject. Or they may send somebody. That was my experience before, when I was the dean, because they never send senior people who have been working, say, 20 years, 30 years in industry, and we should get their knowledge. For instance, the other factor which I see is the problem of the big industries, the big companies are foreign, either Japanese or, European, Singaporean. They run our big industry and they're not interested to link with the universities. So I think that's one factor which I see. Even R&D, for instance, if they are from foreign companies, I don't think they are very interested.
Yeah.
But I see, Naima, I see some question in the chat.
Right. I saw one now. No more questions already asked. It's just
Oh,
that
okay.
one comment from the same person, Encik Kamaruzaman Jahidin. He said, thank you, Professor. I am currently running a program called Graduate in Factory under MPC. I see the gap. Hope this program will help to smother the gap.
Yes. So as I said earlier, Encik Kamaruzaman, the one issue is actually numbers. Because every university wants their final year student to be attached, the attachment program. But the numbers, I think, is difficult to cope. Because in total, IPTS, IPTA, public and private universities, and even colleges, there's more than 300,000 per year. So if you send, how many can you cope? To do this, it's not easy. And then we did a study, actually, I'm involved in the study, where the apprentice who are trained in different companies. Some companies are very good. They have a mentor system, they have a syllabus, the apprentice must follow. But some macam just, they just to comply with the ministry, they take in, but no proper
doing photocopying.
Baca surat khabar, potong surat khabar, make coffee for the boss. But it is getting better. It's getting better. But the problem, as I always mention, in numbers, too many. So that's a big problem for us. Okay. Memang tak ada lagi. I see Dr. Prof Sanusi ada mention, don't know what. No. He mentioned about my slide.
Okay.
In the YouTube, Tan Sri?
No, in our chat box.
And the chat box?
In our
This
chat box.
from Dr. Abdul Hamid, previously about the industrial training.
Yeah. Apalah, what's the time now? 11:30.
Yeah.
Anyway, I enjoy the morning session.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri.
But I think we have a lot to do,
Mhm.
That's the message lah. A lot to do, both sides, the universities and the industry. But our collaborative level is not that sayang lah. And worse still, because the current minimum wage has impacted our graduate.
This one, another way of, something occurred in my mind. The reverse appel.
Reverse?
Appel.
Appel, okay.
So now, maybe this is something that can be pursued. But, of course, we have to, polish the idea. But the appel, under appel, you look at the experience and you translate that into credit.
Yes, of course.
But now, the reverse is perhaps, 1 year, the students are based in the industry.
Yes.
And they really have to be like an employer and we credit that learning.
Yes. Lifelong
But
learning.
it must be much more organized, systematic,
Yes,
structured than
yes.
the current attachment
Yes.
internship.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, you have to have, for instance, like example, some inbuilt courses.
Mm.
Dia ada dua, satu off the industry floor, and then that means that's the theoretical part, and then the practical, you have to mentor, you have to follow that guy to teach. That's where sometimes the small companies don't have the time,
Yeah.
to
That's right.
it's a big issue, for us to move the technology ladder. Big issue, because I believe in that, because when we started at OUM, those who are present know it. Now I think you don't have to have first degree even to do masters.
Yeah.
I think
they have produced the Apple Q.
You know better. Huh?
Yeah,
I'm out of date maybe. There's so many micro credential and all that to assist and to help lifelong learning, which is very good. Okay.
All right, Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Tan Sri. And
Thank you very much.
everyone.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the morning forum. Thank you so much.
Alhamdulillah. All right, inshallah, we have come to the end of our program today. On behalf of IUM Academy, I would like to express our appreciation to Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Anuwar for your precious time and willingness to be our speaker today. May Allah bless all your efforts in spreading knowledge, and may He make things easy for you in your future initiatives. And thank you to all joiners for your support. We apologize for any shortcoming in handling this program. Inshallah, we'll meet again in the upcoming Baseerah Talk Series, which is happening next week on Tuesday, 30th August. We will be listening to Professor Dato Dr. Ahmad Murad American with the topic, The Merdeka of History and Social Science. The poster and details will be up on our social media platforms, so do follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And as for today's live session, it will be up on our official YouTube channel for your future reference. Make sure to click subscribe right now, subscribe IUM Academy, and also hit the notification bell to not miss any new content. We look forward to seeing you again, inshallah. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tan Sri.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.